So 184 we'll start with, but just a real fast revision is the book started with Bhagwan Shankaracharya telling us how rare the human birth is, and the rarity has been specified to tell us how precious this life is. See, what is rare is precious. Nah? Otherwise, if it's commonly available everywhere, then it doesn't become precious. So the idea is this human birth is very precious. And so what if it's precious? Don't waste it. It's precious. You have gotten it. It's great. You know, you can use this life to actually liberate yourself from the thraldom of sansar. So it can achieve great purpose, this life. In this life itself, you can achieve the highest, what the Shastras talk about, moksha. And this is the only birth. Human birth is the only birth in which you can get moksha. You cannot get moksha in any other birth. So that's why Bhagwan has written this whole treatise on Viveka, discrimination. And I told you, Chudamani, it's the crest jewel of discrimination. And so he talked about the grace in our life. The first grace is that we have a human body. Then the other grace is that we met a guru, because you know gurus are very rare. So many gurus don't even want to teach. So if by some chance we have met a guru, means there's some merit that is there. And if we stay with the guru, then even more merit, because there are people who meet the guru, but then they leave the guru also. They go and then they come back and they're back and forth. And then this guru today, tomorrow that guru, third day, third guru. So if you're staying with one guru, that is great merit. So that is a grace that we are with a guru. And then he also talked about the means of wisdom, like how you can get moksha is only through knowledge, not through karma. And the fit student also was talked about. A few verses on that. And then the fit student, who is an adhikari, a qualified student, the one who has viveka, vairagya, shat sampati and mumukshutvam. Okay, so viveka is the first step. Discrimination. Unless I know what is good and what is not good, how will I let go of the not good? I have to know both. If I have to do discrimination, when we say discrimination, means there have to be minimum, there could be more things, but minimum 2 things have to be there. I have to know both the things. If I have to give up one, I have to know both. Because if I know only one and I don't know the other, then how do I know that the other one is not better than the one that I know? So we have to know both. And that's where the Vivek comes in first, because only when we have Viveka, then if Vairagya comes out of this discrimination, that Vairagya will stay, the dispassion will stay. Otherwise, it won't stay. Dispassion comes, you know, when there is a sorrow in life, death in life, in our lives of some near and dear ones, dispassion comes. But that dispassion is not long lasting. The dispassion that will come out of knowledge. What is the knowledge? The discrimination between the self and the not self. So that discrimination, when it becomes firm, then Vairagya will become firm. And Vairagya is also very, very essential. But you can't get Vairagya until you have Viveka. So Viveka is the first step. So that is the first step. And that is what also Bhagwan is, that's why he's written up this whole book. And then, of course, we talked about the sadhana chatushtaya. So what is Viveka, what is Vairagya, what is Shat Sampati, Shama, Dama, Titiksha, Samadhana, Shraddha, all that, Uparati. So that is the Shat Sampati. And then the Mumukshutvam, a burning desire for liberation. Okay, so we talked about that. Then this, the qualifications. So he explained in great detail the qualifications. So these are the 4 qualifications. And then Vivek. What is Viveka? Discrimination between Sat and Asat. What is Vairagya? For Vairagya for whatever is in this world as well as the other worlds. Because people have Vairagya for dispassion for everything from this world, but then they are aspiring for the heavens. So there has to be that dispassion for even those worlds which are a point of return. So that's the highest definition of Vairagya. Then what is Shama? The control of the senses, control of the mind. Uparati, staying with your own dharma. Withdrawal. Uparati is withdrawal, and there is an automatic withdrawal that happens when you are focused only on what your duty is. Then you don't get into other things, what the other person is doing, what is that person doing, all these things get cut out. So uparati, samadhana, the equanimity of the mind. We are talking about samatvam in Bhagavad Gita also, extremely important. Samadhana. Titiksha, forbearance, come what may, I want to do this. Nothing will stop me. So forbearance also very important. Dhriti it is called also, titiksha. And then shraddha. In the Shat Sampati, Shraddha is the most important, because unless you have that faith that there is something like moksha, why will you go after it? You can't. So in that Shat Sampati also, faith is extremely important. And the importance of faith is such that only on the basis of faith you can get liberation. If you have that extreme faith in your Guru, all the others will come. Sir Nasagdat Maharaj, we have seen that. There was only the faith in the Guru. I am that. Guru told him, you are that. Finish. Right? So faith is extremely important. Okay. So then then the 7 questions came, or before that, it was all, okay. Explanation of all the what is mumukshutvam, etc., etc. And then bhakti. Of course, he says that bhakti can also give you liberation. Just bhakti, just devotion, extreme devotion to Lord or to Guru, feet of the Guru. Bhakti is, bhakti is required in all. It's like that. You have various types of soaps, laundry detergents, right? And you can use any one of them, but can you use any one of them without water? So that bhakti is like that water. No matter what you do, jnana marga, through knowledge, through karma, through, hatha yoga, whatever it is, this bhakti is required. Bhakti is of the nature of love. So bhakti, without bhakti, if you do knowledge, it will not be very effective. Karma yoga cannot happen without devotion, love. Bhakti means love. So if you take bhakti in the meaning of love, it is love. Unless you have love for the thing, you will not stay on that path. So that's why this bhakti is considered like water. You can have as many laundry detergents, but without water you cannot cleanse, right? So that's how bhakti is. So that's why, and of course Bhagwan's definition of bhakti is also very high. It is not the one that is that we have in Narad Bhakti Sutra or other bhakti texts. He says the self in me is the self. That is what bhakti, the highest bhakti is in the form of knowledge, that the self in me and the self in the Lord is one and the same. So that is bhakti as per Bhagwan Shankaracharya. And then the question answers, Kshotriya description of Guru is there. How should the Guru be? Shrotriya and Brahmanishta from Mundaka Upanishad it is. So one who has heard the scriptures from his Guru and realized the self himself. That is the Sadguru. That is what the Sadguru is. That's why I told you we are all teachers. We are teachers. We are not gurus. Guru means one who removes the ignorance. So that's the highest definition of Guru. Shrotriya and Brahmanishta. Those 2 requirements are there for Sadguru. Shrotriya is one who has heard, done Shravana. So which means that he already had a Guru. Because Shravana cannot happen without another person being there. So that means Shravana presupposes a Guru for him, and also Brahmanishta. So where his Nishtha, his faith, he stays in Brahman. His Nishtha, his faith is in Brahman alone, and that's where he stays. So that's what the Guru is. And he's a ahetu, he's compassionate without any reason. Like we are compassionate sometimes because of whatever reasons, but he is unconditionally compassionate. That is what a Guru always is. So he goes on forgiving the mistakes of his disciples. No matter how many mistakes they make, he goes on forgiving. Okay. I'm just going real fast in this. And then we come to the 7 questions that the disciple has asked. Those are the most important questions. So what is bondage? It's 49, verse 49. What is bondage? How has it come? How does it continue to exist? How can one get out of it completely? What is the not self? Who is the supreme self? And what is the process of discrimination between these two, self and not self? That's why I told you, see, in the questions also, what is the not self and who is the self? Discrimination has to happen between self and not self, so both has to be known. It's like, okay, just tell me what the self is and I'll go after it. No, it's not like that. Tell me what the not self is so that I don't get attached to it too much. Dhanyosi. So Guru is very happy with the questions. I told you, generally we go to a Guru and ask questions from the material world. When will I get a promotion? When will my daughter get married? So when will my son have a child? When will I have a grandchild? So that is not the type of questions that one must be asking. Yeah, that would be like going to a king, and a beggar went to a king, and the king said, ask for whatever that you want. He said, I don't have a begging bowl to beg. So can I have a begging bowl? King said, ask for whatever that you want. He says, I just need a begging bowl. That's what it is. When we ask for material things, we are asking for a begging bowl, because the beggary is not going to go. Our beggary will only go when we realize the self. That's it. Okay. So then of course, self-effort. Guru can tell us, but finally the effort is ours. There is no alternative. There are no shortcuts to realization. There are no alternatives other than self-effort, and self-effort has to be, it's not, when we say effort, it's not a physical doing anything, it's intellectual effort. So the thinking, the discrimination, and for that we need a quiet mind. And then for the quiet mind, we need karma yoga. To quieten the mind, we need karma. So that is action. Karma yoga is action, but this effort towards realization is finally only a mental effort. So it doesn't actually fall under action. Otherwise, action would have given liberation. We have seen that many times. Action doesn't give liberation. Action only gives purity of mind, which is very essential for the further effort that we need to put into the discrimination of the self and not self. Because it's a very deep inquiry, and for that we need a very purified mind. Okay. Knowledge of the self. Then he talks about the knowledge, and we talked about all the different schools of philosophy. So, and then also he also talked about Shabda Jalam Maharanya. There is a huge amount of literature with different things. Don't get caught in it. And without direct experience, liberation is only by direct experience. Okay, so that's also he's talked about. That's why he concludes that all your effort should be towards negating the not self. All right. Now the questions are, now he starts into the questions. Vidvat Chinmaya, listen attentively, tell you, listening to you, listening. Shama Dhamma, Mokshasya Hetu Prathamo Nigadete. So you need Shama, you need Dhamma, we've seen that. The Antaranga sadhana is there within. So purifying the mind is an Antaranga sadhana, for which we need the Bahiranga sadhana of Karma Yoga. So there are 2 sadhanas, outside and inside. Bahiranga outside. Outside it will be Karma Yoga. Inside it will be purifying the mind. So that way there are these 2 types of this thing. And then he went into the gross body. There are the 3 bodies that we have always talked about: the gross, the subtle, and the causal. So he explained the gross body. Most of us think that we are the body. That's the very sad part. And the reason that the gross body is being explained, and explained in such a, like, what should I say, disgusting manner. It's really disgusting when he says it's made out of blood and flesh, and you're like, oh my God, fecal matter, urine. So the reason is that you don't get attached to the body. always remember that the body is an instrument and we definitely need the instrument. That should be our attitude towards the body. This is my instrument to realize. Therefore, the body has to be taken care of for realization. Not that people will see, look, let me look young and people should not know my age and people should think I'm so young. No, 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 no. That is not the purpose. So that's why with that attitude, you have to take care of the body. So you see, a seeker also will be taking care of the body, and an ignorant person, the ignorant person will think, oh, what seeker, he is taking so much care of his body. But the seeker's attitude for the reason that he's taking care of the body is different. That's what should be our reason. That I want to remain healthy so that I can study, I can sit down to meditate, I can, I have the energy to attend classes. That sort of, I have the capacity to serve my guru. Because if I only am, physically weak, then how will I serve others? So with that attitude, we have to, so never think that the gross body is not useful. It is useful, but don't think you are the body. That is the mistake. I am the body should not be thought of. I need the body. Absolutely, I need the body. So that thought should never go, that I need the body to realize the self, and that's why I need to keep it healthy. That should be our attitude towards the gross body. He talked about the Panchikarana. We saw the process of pentamerous subdivision and mutual combination, how the body has come about from the elements. So there are the 5 elements in the subtle form, then they split. I don't have to explain it again. It's page 108 in my book. So the idea is to tell us that the body also has come from the elements, and where have the elements come from? From Ishvara. So that means everything has come from Ishvara. This is also the reason, because we say, what is the body made out of? It is made out of only 5 elements. So when we say that I am the body, that means you are saying you are space, you are inert space, you are inert air, fire, water. That is what I'm saying. If I say I'm the body, then I'm all these 5 elements. Because the body is nothing but the 5 elements. Everybody's body, animal body, plant body, whatever body that you take, there's only 5 elements. Material source is only 5 elements. There is no other source. Okay, so that's why. And the thought that I am the body is the bondage. He asked one question, what is bondage? It is only a thought. We are bound only in thought. Are we bound physically? Is somebody tying us to the chair or the house or whatever? No, but mentally I'm tied to the house. It's my house. It's my body, my car. That is bondage. That I have, I and mine, me and my house, my children, my family, my husband, that my that I have, me, that is the bondage. So bondage is only in thought, and thought is false. That's why bondage is also actually, bondage is false. Because if bondage was really real, you could never shed it. You could never get rid of it. So think about it like that also, okay? Then the sense objects, man is bound, and there's the very famous verse of each animal having only one sense weakness, and they get trapped. Elephant is attached to the touch, and the deer is attached to the smell, verse 76. Whereas we have all the 5 senses, and we are attached to all. We want to see also, we want to smell also, we want to taste also, we want to hear also. So imagine what plight we are in. Like animal having one sense weakness gets trapped and destroyed. We have all 5. So how much more careful we have to be. Okay. Then he went on to the foolish man who walks the thing. And then if we have the craving for liberation, then we have to avoid sense objects like poison. Fascination for body is criticized. Don't have that much attachment to the body. And then the gross body is condemned. From gross body, he goes into organs of the senses, organs of perception and action. He is explaining how these are not the self. That is the topic that we actually are on. And we went from gross body to pranas, why the pranas are not the self, why they don't have knowledge. Why is the body is inert? How can inert be the self? Self is conscious. The definition of self is existence, consciousness, bliss. Body is inert. How can body be this? Body be the self? Also, body is seen. The self is the seer. So that is the discrimination that we have to keep doing, keep thinking. Pranas have no knowledge. Pranas have activity, but they do not have knowledge. If they had knowledge, they wouldn't be working 24/7 for us. Pranas are the only thing in the body that work when we are asleep. Whether we are asleep or waking, pranas are working. Who works 24/7? Anybody? No, they're dumb. Pranas are dumb. They have no knowledge. So they can't be the self. That's what it is. And then the inner instruments, the mind, the 5 pranas he talked about, and then going on into the subtle organs of perception. They cannot be the dream state. Swapna Bhavata say he talks about the dream where the subtle body is functioning, the mind is functioning. And then going into pranas, functions of the pranas, ego is discussed. The ego is reflected consciousness, what in Sanskrit or technical term is known as Chidabhasa. The self is reflecting in the mental pool, and that is known as Chidabhasa. And that reflection erroneously thinks that it is alive, and it knows. It does know. The thing that the reflected consciousness is forgetting is that it is a dependent reality. That is the important thing to know. That this existence of mine, I am existing, I know, I do, and I will enjoy. This I is the Chidabhasa, and Chidabhasa thinks, ego thinks that it is very, very real. It is forgetting that the reality of that ego is borrowed from the pure consciousness. And that's why whatever the ego thinks, whatever the ego does, the ego itself is false. So whatever comes out of that ego, actions, thoughts coming out of that ego, how can they be true? They can't. So it's not the self. Okay, and then infinite love. We always have infinite love. This is from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, where they say everything, the Upanishad says everything that we do, we desire it for our own self. Then he talked about Maya, which is a very huge topic. Maya is ignorance. Maya is avidya. Maya is anirvachaniya. It cannot be described. But then there are pages and pages, and Bhagavan Shankaracharya has written poetry on that Maya, 5 verses on Maya. So what do you mean it can't be described? It cannot be. The main thing is it cannot be described as being real or unreal. That is why it is anirvachaniya. Anirvachaniya means it cannot be described. And the question arises is there are pages and pages written about Maya, and gurus talk about Maya so much. So how do you say it? So the reason it is anirvachaniya is because we cannot. Is it real? If it was really real, it would never end. But Maya ends. Maya has an end. Maya has an end in knowledge. Knowledge of the self will end Maya. So if it has an end, it cannot be Sat. Then the other alternative is Asat. Then it is Asat. No, but I can experience it. I experience Maya. I experience the ignorance. So how can you say that it is Asat? It is not Asat. It is Mithya. Okay, it has a relative existence. It will exist for a while as long as you are unaware of the fact that you are the self, and upon realization, Maya will disappear forever, never to come back. Maya also is beginningless because it begins with the pure consciousness. What is the difference between Maya and pure consciousness then? Maya ends, pure consciousness never ends. Okay, that is what Maya is. Then he talked about the 3 gunas, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. We have talked about those in detail in chapter 14 as well. The effects of Rajas, the effects of Tamas. Okay, all that. And Then, yeah, Sattva Guna, nature and effects. So all the three gunas were discussed. And then the causal body, coming to the causal body. So the causal body also in our chart, Om and the V that is shown is the causal body, and the three gunas are there because it is Maya. So the three gunas are there, but there are no gunas in the Om, in the pure consciousness. So causal body also is the not self. It is the closest to the self. It gives us happiness in deep sleep, causal body, but we are unaware of that happiness while we are in the sleep. We have to be happy and we have to be aware of it. Right now, it's not the happiness that we feel when we come in contact with other objects, but the happiness that is experienced in deep sleep, which is recognized after waking up. That happiness in deep sleep, that same happiness, we must be able to experience it in waking state. That is what samadhi is. So that's why. And then now he goes into the description of the not self, deha, indriya, prana, manaha. And then he has talked about the self in verse 124 to 135. It cannot be destroyed. It is not born. It is the witness of the three states. It is there. It's present every time. That which sees everything, but nobody can see it. Okay. And then he na jayate namriyate. Yeah, we have seen all that. Now the advice for self-control, and then what is bondage? So there was another question. What is bondage? So I told you, bondage is only a thought. It is only in thought. There is no real bondage. So my thinking that I am the body, my thinking that this is my house, my thinking that this is my child, my thinking that this is my husband, my wife, my possessions, my car, that thought is a bondage. That thought is a bondage. That's what it is. Okay. So if we can start thinking of all these things as children, as somebody whom I have to take care of. They don't belong to me, but I have to take care of them. Car is my vehicle. I need that instrument to travel. Same way like body. I need the body, but it's not me. So this is what will get you freed from those fetters of bondage, that type of thinking. Then also he talked about atasmin tat buddhi, very important, superimposition. Why is there bondage? Bondage is there because of the superimposition. We have talked about snake and rope many, many times. Why do I fear? Fear is caused by bondage. I walk in, I don't see the rope, I see a snake, I'm afraid. Okay. Or I see a garland and I'm happy, and that also is bondage. Both are bondage. Don't think that only fear and sorrow is bondage. Happiness also is bondage, because it's binding you to those things which you think are giving you happiness. In actuality, there is no happiness in anything else. And then we were powers agitating and wailing. We saw in Rajas and Tamas. Rajas causes agitation, tamas causes wailing. So the wailing happens first, and then the agitation comes. Agitation can never happen unless there is a wailing. If I see the rope as a rope, there cannot be any agitation. But the rope is veiled from my vision, and I then superimpose a snake on it. And that's what causes that. And then bondage. The bondage in action is, many times you have talked about this, action sprouts. When action is done with a sense of doership. What is a sense of doership? I am the one that is doing this action. When I have that notion of I am the doer, that action gives results, and then that result has to go to the doer. That is the law of karma. I do an action, the result has to come back to me. Okay. And then what happens is some results will be there in the same life, but then there will be some results which have to be, which will fructify at a much later date. And so that jiva continues transmigration because the results are pending. The results are pending for that jiva to experience. So for those pending results, that jiva has to take rebirth. That is what bondage is. That's the bondage in action. And the freedom from that bondage from action is karma yoga. Karma yoga will give freedom from bondage in action, where you say that you are not doing it for yourself, you're doing it for any higher altar. We've talked about it. Ishvara, Guru, small baby, somebody other than you yourself. If you keep that in mind, I am a servant of the Lord, I am a servant of my Guru, I am a servant of the family. Even that's why Gurudev said mothers should be, they should consider themselves to be a nanny of the children. As a nanny, you take the Gurudev's very famous example, it is, Tripti will know, right? Just like he used to say that the rich person has a nanny, okay, to look after the children. Now that nanny has a bedroom in the same house, right? She has got she's eating the same food as the family is eating, staying there 24 hours. And she's taking good care of the children. But she knows that they are not her children. Okay? So Gurudev used to say, for young mothers, you should be like that nanny. And the nanny is very alert towards the children, whether they've eaten, whether they've slept, they studied, do their homework, everything, she's taking care of them. But she doesn't have that these are my children notion. That notion she doesn't have. So same way the mother always to be like a nanny. Okay? And that's what will not create bondage. And then purification of the mind. And we were negation of the five koshas. That's where we were, negation of the five koshas. So in the three bodies, gross, subtle, and causal bodies, there are five sheaths. And we've talked about that. Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, and then Anandamaya kosha. So the Annamaya kosha is the body, the gross body. So we talked about that. Why I cannot be the Annamaya kosha? Everybody remembers? Because it is born from Anna, from food, and it will go back into food. It will get destroyed, go back into food. So I cannot be the Annamaya kosha, and it's inert. It is inert. Then the Pranamaya kosha. That's where we are actually. So I cannot be the Pranamaya kosha also is not the self. Why? No knowledge. Pranamaya kosha has no knowledge, whereas the self has knowledge. Manomaya kosha. Why am I not the Manomaya kosha? And that's the portion that we have just finished, because the mind changes. Mind changes from minute to minute, right? And Kutastha, or the pure consciousness, never changes. Because mind, we think maybe, the thing was mind has knowledge. At the level of Annamaya kosha, there is only existence. Pranamaya kosha, there is existence plus activity. Manomaya kosha, there is existence, activity plus knowledge. And therefore that knowledge, and the mind is active, so it feels it's alive. But it's not. It's actually inert. And the reason that it appears alive is because of that reflected consciousness. And then the Vijnanamaya kosha has existence, activity, knowledge, and doership. The I notion, I am doing and I will enjoy, that I notion is in the Vijnanamaya kosha, and that's what we'll be seeing today. So we completed the mental sheath. It pervades the Pranamaya kosha, and whatever pervades, whatever is subtle will pervade the gross and also will control the gross. Subtle always controls the gross. So Vijnanamaya kosha is subtler than the Manomaya. So Vijnanamaya will control Manomaya. Manomaya will control Pranamaya. Pranamaya will control Annamaya kosha. Okay. And the subtlest is the supreme reality, this Om. So that subtlest part will control everything else. How? Because if that subtlest part is removed from our body, the body cannot function. So the final control is with the pure consciousness. That we forget. We forget. We think, I'm so great, I've done so much. If you're not breathing, what would you do? That's why that humility has to come. That, oh, thank you, Lord, you let me do this thing. Thank you, Lord, because anything can happen at any moment. Are there any questions so far? Everybody okay? So we had completed the final 183 was the mental sheath cannot be the supreme self either. That was the conclusion. And everybody's okay with that. Why Annamaya, Pranamaya, and Manomaya can't be the self? For it has a beginning and an end. The mind ends in deep sleep. Okay. So it is subject to modifications, pain and suffering characterize it, and it is an object of cognition. I know my own mind. So it is seen. Whatever is seen cannot be the seer. Pure consciousness is the final seer. Okay, so far so good. Okay, 184, which is with Jnanamaya Kosha. This is the final, penultimate, the second last, because after this is the Anandamaya Kosha, which we will also be negating. Buddhir buddhendriyai sardham savrati kartrulakshanaha vijnanamaya koshasyat punsa samsara karanam. The intellect with its modifications, along with the organs of perception, form the intellectual sheath, Vijnanamaya Kosha. It has the characteristics of the agent or doer, which is the cause for transmigration. I just explained this. The reflection of the pure consciousness being extremely subtle, it requires a very, very subtle medium to reflect on or reflect in. I've given you the example of the beach where there is a log of wood also, a huge log of wood may be there, and there's a very little tiny shell. But that tiny shell will reflect the sun and the log of wood will not. Okay, so it's not the size, it is the subtlety. And the subtlest part of the mental pool. So in the mind, we have the mind, mana, buddhi, chitta, and ahankara. This ahankara is located in the intellectual sheath. Intellect and ahankara go together, and mind and memory go together. So there was some masters will say mind is only made out of two things, mind and intellect, because they put chitta with mind and ahankar with this. Bhagavan Shankaracharya divides it into four. Gurudev has always taken it as four parts. So we take it as 4 parts. Now in these 4 parts, this ego is the subtlest. And that's exactly where the reflection is happening. Though in general terms, we say it happens in the mental pool, it happens in the, but in the mental pool also, it is happening only in the ego. And that ego is associated with intellect. And that's why the doership, I told you, in the Vijnanamaya Kosha is existence. It exists. It is active. Activity is there. Knowledge is there. Plus doership, which is not there in the mental sheath. The doership is not there in the mental sheath because that ego is in the intellectual sheath. And that doer, that's why he says, which is a cause for, because the doer is the one that is saying, I'm doing. I know. I want this. I did this. And therefore, this is the result I'm getting. So this I, and like Gurudev would always say, the small I, this is in the intellectual sheath. And that is the small I that is causing this whole transmigration fiasco. It's a fiasco. Birth, death, birth. All this is happening because of that. Now, a simple adjustment in that small I, instead of saying, I did it, just karma yoga, I as an instrument have done it for somebody else. That's all that is needed. See how simple it is. That is liberation. If in every single thing that you do, you remember that you're an instrument, that's it. Just remember you're an instrument. I'm an instrument. This happened through me. This thought came to me. Thank you, Lord, you gave me this thought. Thank you, Lord, this action happened through me. If you keep practicing this every single time, that thank you will come out. And what happens is that ego gets slowly falsified, negated. That is the cause for transmigration. It's not the body. Gross body is not the cause for transmigration. Gross body is inert. Mind also is not the cause. Vijnanamaya Kosha, because the ego is there. And ego is Chidabhasa or the Jiva Bhava that we have, these terms are familiar to us. Jiva Bhava, Ahankara. Aham karoti iti ahankara. Ego is in Sanskrit is ahankara. What is ahankara? Aham karoti. Aham, I do. That is the one that is ego. And that is what causes transmigration. Okay, next. Anuvrajachit pratibimba shakti vijnana sangya prakrutir vikaraha jnana kriyavanahamitya jastram dehendriya dvishvabhimanyate bhrisham. Accompanied by a reflection of the light of Chit. The intellectual sheath is a modification of Prakriti. It is endowed with the function of knowledge and is always completely identified with the body, sense organs, etc. So the Vijnana Maya Kosha is constantly accompanied. Why? Because it is the subtle part. There is a sun and then there is some water. Reflection has to, it is sahaja. Swami Vidyaranya says, this is the sahaja identification, natural identification. It cannot be avoided. You cannot avoid the reflection from happening in the Vijnanamaya Kosha. Why? Because Vijnanamaya Kosha is there, the medium is there, the pure consciousness is all pervading. Reflection will happen. It's a very natural phenomena which can never be avoided. Now, so we cannot do anything about it. What can you do? It's a natural. When will it end? It will end upon the death of the body. But we cannot end it. Like, we cannot say, okay, I don't want the reflection to happen in my mental pool. We cannot do that. So this is a natural thing that is happening. And that reflection, though, what it is taking upon itself the reality of the pure consciousness, and it is thinking that I'm doing. Now, that part is unnatural. The doership, taking on the doership, is not a natural thing. So because it is not natural, we can avoid it. What is natural, you cannot avoid the reflection from happening. It is the reason that I'm speaking is because that reflection is happening. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to speak. The very fact that the body is thinking and the eyes are seeing and the ears are hearing is the reflection. I need the reflection. But if I start saying I am the one that is speaking and how good am I speaking and how much I'm doing and how much I'm this and that is the unnatural part. That can be avoided. That is what it is. Bhagwan is saying it is a modification of Prakriti. Modification of Prakriti means what? It has come from Prakriti. Prakriti is what? Maya. What is Maya? Maya is made up of the 3 gunas, and the 5 elements have come from Maya. So intellectual sheath also is the subtle part of the elements. Remember in Tattva Bodh we studied that, like the gross part becomes the body in the pentamerous Panchikarna, and the subtle aspect of the elements is going into the mental pool, to formation of the mental pool. So it is also made out of 5 elements only. Vijnanamaya Kosha is also made out of 5 elements. And then it is endowed with the function of knowledge. It knows. Why? Because the reflection is happening in the mental pool. The body never knows anything. Body doesn't know because reflection is not happening in the body. Though you see the body moving, so the body is enlivened, but it is enlivened only because of the light of that reflected consciousness. We have given you the example of a dark room, and if the bucket is at the door and it's a bucket of water and the sun is reflecting in that bucket, that reflected sun is reflecting a light into the room and the room is getting lit up. So the body is like that dark room. And that reflected consciousness is transmitting this light into the body, and that's why the body can move and talk and etc. etc. Okay. So the knowledge is there in the Vijnanamaya Kosha, and the doership is there. Knowledge is there even in the mind also knows, but mind doesn't take up doership. Vijnanamaya Kosha does because the ego is there. Okay, and it's completely identified with the body because what do I say? I am Jaya. I'm 5'4". I'm female. Don't I say that all the time? That's what is that? That's complete identification with the body. I'm a mother. I'm a teacher. I'm a mission member. I'm a president. I'm a doctor. I'm a whatever. That is identification. So it's completely identified with the body, mind, and senses. Okay. All right. Anadikalo yamah swabhavah jiva samasta vyavahara bodha karoti karmanyapi purva vasanah punyani cha tatphalani भुङ्क्ते विचित्रा स्वपियो निषु व्रजः नायाति निर्यात्यधौर्ध्वमेषः अस्यैव विज्ञानमयस्य जाग्रत स्वप्नाद्यवस्था सुखदुःखभोगः. It is without beginning, is of the nature of the ego, and is called the jiva. This jiva, I told you, jiva, it is what this is. He's talking about the reflection of consciousness. Why is it anadi? Why is it beginningless? It is a reflection of pure consciousness, which is beginningless. So if pure consciousness is beginningless, the reflection will be beginningless only. No? Reflection cannot be have a beginning. Pure consciousness, like sun is shining on the beach. So the reflection in the water and in the shell, that reflection will be there as long as the sun is there. So that's why it is anadi. Of the nature of the ego, that ego, I told you, the I, and Gurudev would always say the small I. Pure consciousness is the big I, small I is the reflected consciousness. Reflected consciousness is the jiva, and the jiva is the one that goes on saying, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm this, I'm that, etc., etc. I'm intelligent, I'm thin, fat, I'm happy, sad, I'm intelligent, dull, which carries out the entire range of activities on the relative plane, right? We say that, now I went here, I did this, I cooked, I did that. It performs good and evil actions according to its previous vasanas and experiences their results. It is the jiva. Please remember, it is the jiva that is experiencing the result. Pure self is not experiencing any results. Jiva. What is jiva? Jiva is pure consciousness plus the medium, plus the reflection. Jiva is reflection, which is pure consciousness plus medium. So there are three things in jiva. Pure consciousness is there, reflection is there, and the medium is there. Because without the medium, how the reflection will happen? So the reflection, the medium is also included, but we generally don't talk about medium. We just talk about reflection. But you have to remember that a reflection cannot happen without a medium. So the medium is always there, okay, in the background. It comes and goes up and down, taking birth in various bodies. The waking dream and other states and the experiences of joy and sorrow belong to this intellectual sheath. Belong to the intellectual sheath means belong to the jiva. The jiva is pure consciousness plus reflection plus medium. This jiva, this reflection is the one that is doing all the actions. Why is it? Means the body is doing the action, but who is taking ownership? I helped somebody. I did something. So the ownership, physical action, the jiva, jiva is subtle. Physical action is being done by the gross body, but who is ordering the gross body to do things? Is the jiva. When I say that I thought of doing this, I thought of, going here or going there, it is the jiva that is ordering the body. Let's go there, let's do this, let's do that. And it is thinking that it is the one that is the doer. That is the problem. Doing by itself is not a problem. Okay, if it is necessary for me to go somewhere, I should go. But if I take on that I thought and I went there, that responsibility don't take. It's very simple. Don't take any responsibility. Why do you want to take responsibility? The pure consciousness, right? So because of this taking on this responsibility, which is unnatural, why are you taking on something which you're not concerned with? So it's unnatural. Then it becomes, it has to experience the results. Because that action is giving, that is a law of karma. Any karma you do will give result. That is like, you throw a ball up in the air, it will come down. That is the law of gravity. Like that, this is the law of karma. You do karma, there will be a result. Now that karma, you are taking on the responsibility of that karma. This will be talking about in detail in chapter 3 of the Bhagavad Gita. That locus is the ego. When the ego says that I am doing this action, that means the result of that action that will come, the ego only has to take. How somebody else will take? That same ego has to take it. And because that this is the law, it is the law that the result has to go to the one who is doing, the doer has to take birth. Now, how he will exhaust all the results in one birth? He can't. He can't. That's the principle of transmigration. Why is there, who is transmigrating is the jiva. See, body is getting destroyed here. It is getting cremated here. It's gone into the 5 elements. Body is not taking rebirth. Again, body can't. A new body will come. Who is taking rebirth is the jiva. And why is it taking rebirth? Because it has taken on the responsibility of the actions that it has done. Maybe good, maybe bad, doesn't matter. Both bind. Good actions bind, bad actions bind too. And that's why the instruction is to rise above both good and bad. See, we think, when we think we should all do good actions, na? Of course, if there is a choice between doing a good and a bad action, definitely you must choose good action. But the seeker, as a Vedantic seeker, what you must do is you must give up the doership for both good and bad. For both good and bad. Give up the doership. That doership is what is going to make you take birth again. Because those results, who will they go to? They cannot go to anybody else. And that's why I told you there should be no blame game. I got this result and the other person is to blame. No, it is because my karmas are such that I have to experience this type of pain or this type of pleasure. That sort of situation happens where somebody comes and gives me happiness or somebody comes and gives me a whiplash. People are parked in a red light, they're parked, they've done nothing wrong, and somebody comes and hits them from behind. Hasn't this happened? And then people suffer and they say, it was his fault. They say, and in the worldly material world, for ICBC or for insurance corporation, yes, it is his fault. But in the Vedantic standpoint, the thing is that I have done actions in the past that I have to go through this sort of pain. And so that pain has to be caused by somebody. And then that person became an instrument to come and hit my car. And I went through the pain. So in our mind, we should have that thought that I'm experiencing the result of my own action. But in the transactional, of course, you say, no, he hit me. Insurance, all the expenses are coming out of his insurance. But in my mind, I should know. So that's why that's why Guruji has said, inside drama, outside drama. Inside, we should know this very well, that I'm not going to blame this person. Right? Because I have done that sort of an action in sometime in my past lives. That's why this, because it becomes the enjoyer. It thinks it is the doer. Jiva thinks it is the doer. And because of that, it also becomes the enjoyer. So, okay, you have to enjoy your results. And these results are not going to come in this life. So it will come in some future life. That's what this is. And the waking dream, who is the waker? It is the jiva. It's not the pure consciousness. Pure consciousness is always separate. It is a witness of the waking state. It is not the waker. There is a waker right now, and then there is a witness of this waking state. If you, when you sort of purify your mind to a certain extent, you will actually, I don't know how many of you feel this, when you're speaking, you will actually feel that there is somebody inside watching you speak. Now, you have to experience it yourself. I can only tell you because I get that, like I know that I'm speaking, like I am speaking, and at the same time, I know that I'm speaking. That is the witness who's not speaking, who's only witnessing this speech. But the jiva is taking on the responsibility of that speech. And so whatever that speech gives results, maybe the speech is not good, then the jiva has to take this. And when it's good, then the jiva becomes very happy. Yeah. Everybody clapped. I spoke and everybody clapped. And then it is getting bound. That's why you say, no, I'm the witness. I'm just witnessing this. So if it is not good, then I'm a witness of, okay, people didn't like my speech. And okay, people clapped. I'm only a witness. It's not me. Then you're not getting bound. Okay. Any questions? We covered only 2-3 verses today, but next time we are just straight going to go into the verses. Is there any questions? Just one verse on the Vijnanamaya Kosha, and then we go into the Atman.
Jayaji, I was just going to make a comment. Sometimes, now, of course, having studied these ideas and concepts repeatedly, it's making a lot of sense, and you understand what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing, and how you need to identify, like you just talked about the blame game and all that. But like, even though we understand, many times it's just, you just forget and you just react, and it just like, goes right through you, and I think that is the hardest part, that, we have to keep remembering and reminding ourselves that this is what, especially when some things happen that you don't want them to happen to you, you're always, I wouldn't say always, but in a lot of instances, we just shift the blame to others, and we never feel that we could have ever done anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that is the hardest part. At least for me, it is very hard.
No. It's for all of us. That's the reason we are doing satsang every week. And like you said, I've told you repeatedly, that is the reason for repetition also. The example they give is, okay, there is a cup of tea and then you add sugar to it and you don't stir it and you start drinking that tea. Is that tea going to be sweet? Like, will it taste sweet? No. So what you have to do is you have to stir that sugar in the tea. And that's why this knowledge has to be stirred within us. It has to we have to abide in the knowledge. And to abide is what? You have to do it over, like, you want to become an expert in driving, you have to keep driving and driving and driving. I've always given you get a license, that doesn't mean you're an expert driver. You just learn to drive and you just learn the rules of the road. Now they gave you a license. So to become an expert, it'll take years. You'll have to keep driving, right? So you have to keep doing satsang. You have to keep listening to this all the time. And then that knowledge will come when it is needed. Then it is wisdom. Otherwise, it is information. Very simple. Like, people tell me, oh, people come to, I know, I should go for a walk, but I can't go for a walk. There is Jnana Shakti, but it has to be accompanied by Kriya Shakti. Action has to happen. If knowledge converts into action, it is wisdom. If it doesn't convert into action, I know that I should lose weight. And if I'm doing action to do that, then it is wisdom. Otherwise, I know it is only information then. I'm not doing anything to do it. I know that I shouldn't be overweight. I know that. But if I'm not doing anything towards it, then it is information. And so this knowledge also has to become wisdom. And to become wisdom, it needs to be stirred. That's why the manana. That's why you have to keep thinking and you have to keep attending classes. Does that make sense? So when you keep hearing it over and over again, then when the time comes, suddenly it will come to you right away. It'll come to you. I think I told you, how that thing happened with me, where I forgot one thing in the store, and then suddenly I thought, they cheated me, but suddenly I checked the bill. So that is how this will help. Okay. Hari Om, everybody.